When life breaks your expectations, when what you prayed for seems delayed or denied, the heart becomes heavy and faith begins to feel like an impossible burden. Disappointment whispers that hope is foolish, that believing again is dangerous because it might lead to more pain. But disappointment is not the end of faith. It is the test of whether faith was built on circumstances or on conviction. Faith is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to believe even when every reason to believe has been stripped away. You see, real faith is born in the dark. Anyone can believe when prayers are answered, when doors swing open, when success is visible. But the strength of faith is revealed when nothing seems to move, when heaven seems silent, and when your heart feels crushed. That is when you decide whether faith was an emotional feeling or a spiritual choice. Disappointment is not your enemy, it is a teacher. It teaches you that what you trusted in might have been too small. Sometimes God allows delay, not to punish you, but to stretch you, to prepare you for something greater than you had the courage to expect. What you lost may not define you, what you learn from it does. To believe again after disappointment, you must first release the weight of what did not happen. As long as you hold on to yesterday's broken pieces, your hands will be too full to receive tomorrow's promise. Let go of the idea that faith guarantees a life without pain. Faith does not cancel pain. It transforms pain into power. Start small. Believe again in one step, one prayer, one act of courage. Faith is not rebuilt in one day. It is rebuilt by choosing daily to trust when nothing makes sense. The fact that you are still breathing is evidence that your story is not finished. If there is breath, there is purpose. If there is purpose, there is hope. So rise from the ashes of disappointment. Choose to believe again, not because the evidence is clear, but because the vision inside of you is greater than the setback behind you. Faith is not about what you see, it is about what you know deep inside, that your life is still in the hands of a God who cannot fail. Would you like me to also make this speech more rhythmic and preacher-like, with pauses and repetition for stronger impact, like how Myles Munroe would emphasize key lines? True faith is born in the dark. It's not proven when everything goes right, but when nothing seems to work and you still choose to believe. Disappointment is a teacher, not an enemy. It reveals where your trust was misplaced and stretches you for greater purpose. Release yesterday's broken pieces. You cannot receive tomorrow's promise if your hands are full of past pain. Faith is rebuilt step by step, not in one giant leap, but in small daily choices to trust again despite confusion. Your story is not finished as long as you have breath. There is purpose, and as long as there is purpose, there is hope. Would you like me to also turn these into short, punchy quotes like motivational one-liners that you could use as captions or highlights from the speech? Faith does not reveal its strength in the sunlight of answered prayers. It reveals its depth in the midnight of silence. When everything you hoped for stands before you, when doors swing open, when dreams manifest exactly as you pictured, it does not take much faith to stand firm. Anyone can believe when life appears cooperative, when blessings flow easily, when the path is smooth. But when faith feels impossible, when you are pressed on every side, when your prayers echo back without reply, that is the soil where true faith begins to grow. Faith is not an emotional high. It is the quiet resolve to trust even when the evidence contradicts your expectation. There comes a time when the darkness around you seems heavier than the light within you. The human heart longs for certainty, for a sign, for some proof that what it clings to is not in vain. Yet faith does not live in certainty. Faith lives in uncertainty. If everything were clear, if everything were predictable, faith would be unnecessary. Faith is tested in the unseen, in the unanswered, in the waiting. It is in those moments that you discover whether your belief was rooted in circumstances or anchored in conviction. True faith is not about outcomes. It is about endurance. It is easy to declare trust when you already see the finish line, but faith is built when you cannot see the path at all, and still you put one foot forward. Faith is the courage to walk into the unknown, believing that even if the ground is hidden, it will hold you. That is why real faith often feels impossible, because it demands what logic cannot justify and what experience cannot confirm. And yet, that impossibility is what makes it powerful. When disappointment strikes, when prayers go unanswered, the temptation is to believe that faith has failed. But faith cannot fail. Only our interpretation of it can. What fails is our expectation that life will unfold on our terms, that timing will bend to our desire, that outcomes will match our imagination. But faith was never about controlling results. It was about trusting in a source greater than results. If faith is real, it does not crumble under delay, it does not collapse under silence, it does not dissolve under pain. Instead, it deepens. The darkness is not your enemy. It is your classroom. It teaches you what trust really means. It strips away the illusions that faith is a contract for comfort. It reveals that faith is not about having everything explained, but about choosing to believe when nothing is explained. In the absence of clarity, you learn that faith is not about seeing with your eyes, but perceiving with your heart. You discover that real faith grows stronger not because of what you see, but in spite of what you cannot see. It is in the dark seasons that your faith is purified. Gold is not proven in the display case, but in the fire. Likewise, your belief is not proven in answered prayers, but in the furnace of unanswered ones. If you only believe when things are easy, then faith is shallow. But when you choose to hold on while everything in you screams to let go, that is when faith becomes unshakable. So, the impossibility of faith is not its weakness. It is its strength. The very fact that it feels beyond reason is what gives it power beyond reason. Anyone can lean on what they see. Only the faithful can lean on what is unseen. And when you come through the night still holding on, you discover that faith is not a fragile feeling but an unbreakable choice. Would you like me to expand each keynote into its own 700-word section so you end up with a full motivational series, one for each point? Disappointment often arrives uninvited, cutting through our expectations like a sharp wind that chills the soul. It leaves you standing in the ruins of what you believed should have happened, staring at unanswered prayers and dreams that did not unfold. In those moments, the heart easily labels disappointment as an enemy, something that comes only to steal joy, to rob peace, and to dismantle confidence. But hidden within disappointment is a greater purpose. It is not simply a destroyer, it is also a teacher. If you choose to listen, disappointment does not just reveal what you lost, it reveals where your trust was anchored. When we place all of our hope in specific outcomes, in precise timing, in exact expectations, we create fragile faith. This kind of faith is tied to conditions. If things work out, I will believe. If they do not, then my faith is shattered. Disappointment exposes this fragility. It does not show you that faith itself is broken. It shows you that perhaps your trust was built on something too small, too narrow, too dependent on your own understanding. That is why disappointment, though painful, can be one of life's greatest instructors. It points you back to a deeper foundation. There are times when the delay or denial of what you asked for is not rejection but redirection. Disappointment stretches the soul, forcing you to look beyond the surface. Perhaps what you prayed for was too limited compared to what you were truly created to experience. Perhaps the timeline you demanded was too early, and you were not yet prepared to carry the weight of the blessing. Disappointment pushes you to examine your foundation. Was your faith in the gift, or was it in the giver? Was your hope in circumstances, or was it in the one who stands beyond circumstances? Every teacher uses discomfort to shape growth. The athlete learns endurance through pain. The student gains wisdom through challenge. In the same way, disappointment is the lesson book of faith. It teaches resilience when prayers linger unanswered. It teaches surrender when doors remain closed. It teaches patience when nothing seems to move. And in each lesson, the believer is invited to release the illusion of control and to discover a trust that is not shaken by outcomes. If you have ever walked through disappointment, you know the sting of dashed expectations, but you may also recall, if you look closely, that those very seasons carried within them seeds of strength you did not know you possessed. Disappointment forced you to reach deeper, to ask harder questions, to stand when you wanted to collapse. It drew out of you perseverance that comfort never could. It refined your motives, showing whether you sought faith only for what it could give you, or whether you clung to it because you believed in something larger than yourself. What looks like a dead end is often preparation for a greater path. The doors that closed may have protected you from rooms not meant for you. The silence you endured may have been the quiet work of shaping your character for something you could not yet imagine. Disappointment stretches your vision so that you stop measuring life only by what you see and begin to measure it by what you believe. In this way, disappointment is not a thief of destiny but a tool of destiny. It dismantles small dreams so that larger ones can be built. The human heart resists pain, but without pain there is no stretching. Without stretching there is no growth. And without growth, faith remains shallow. Disappointment is the instrument that forces you to expand your understanding of trust. It trains you to believe even when your emotions rebel, even when your logic argues, even when your eyes see no evidence. That is the lesson it carries. Faith is not dependent on feelings, it is sustained by conviction. When you see disappointment not as the end but as a teacher, you reclaim its power. You realize that the very thing that threatened to break you was the thing shaping you for a higher level of strength. And though the sting of loss may remain, the wisdom it imparts becomes a foundation no storm can shake. In this way, disappointment graduates from being an enemy to being a silent mentor, guiding you toward a faith that is broader, deeper, and stronger than you ever imagined. Would you like me to expand Keynote 3 next with the same 700-word depth, so we slowly build a full motivational series out of all 5? There is a weight that clings to the soul when yesterday's pain is carried into tomorrow. The broken pieces of unmet expectations, the sharp edges of betrayal, the fragments of failed attempts, they lodge themselves deep within the heart. And while it may feel natural to hold on to them, they do not serve your future, they hinder it. As long as your hands remain full of yesterday's shattered dreams, you cannot embrace the new opportunities that tomorrow brings. Release is not about denying that you were hurt. Release is not about pretending the disappointment did not matter. Release is about refusing to let what is broken dictate what can still be built. Holding on to broken pieces is like trying to drink from a shattered cup. No matter how tightly you grip it, it cannot hold what it was designed to hold. In the same way, your heart cannot carry both the bitterness of yesterday and the blessings of tomorrow. You must choose which one you will make room for. Letting go does not mean you forget. It means you stop allowing the memory to control your belief. It means you decide that your future deserves more loyalty than your past pain. There is something within us that often resists release. We replay the moments of loss, telling ourselves that if we keep turning them over in our minds, somehow they will make sense. But holding on only traps you in cycles of regret. You cannot rewrite yesterday, no matter how many times you revisit it. The only thing you can rewrite is the narrative you tell yourself today. Release is the act of shifting the story, from one of despair to one of resilience, from one of defeat to one of preparation. Faith requires empty hands. You cannot reach for the new if you are still clutching the old. That is why surrender is not weakness but strength. It takes courage to let go of what you thought should have been. It takes courage to unclench your fists from dreams that did not come true. It takes courage to acknowledge that the season you longed for has ended and yet still believe that another season can bloom. Release is the soil where renewed faith begins to grow. Many people carry wounds like trophies of survival, wearing pain as proof of their struggle. But pain is not meant to be a permanent possession. It is meant to be a passage. If you keep reliving what broke you, you never step into what can heal you. Releasing the broken pieces allows space for restoration. Just as a tree sheds its dead leaves to make room for new growth, you must release the weight of what no longer serves you. The shedding may feel like loss, but it is actually preparation for increase. The past is a place of lessons, not residence. You are meant to visit it, learn from it, and move forward, not to build your home there. Some people cannot step into their next chapter because they keep rereading the last one. They are waiting for closure that will never come, or for an apology that will never be spoken. But release does not depend on another person's actions. It depends on your decision. It is the moment you say, I will no longer let what happened to me hold hostage what is possible for me. Letting go also means reframing loss. What you think you lost may have been a shield protecting you from what was never meant to stay. What you call failure may actually be the foundation for a deeper resilience. Release invites you to trust that even what broke can be redeemed into something beautiful. It shifts your vision from the fragments on the ground to the possibilities ahead. When your hands are empty, you become ready to receive. And what you receive is often greater than what you released. The promise of tomorrow does not arrive in hands clenched around yesterday's pain. It arrives in open hands, willing to embrace the new. Release is not the end of hope, it is the beginning of it. By letting go of yesterday's broken pieces, you free yourself to step into tomorrow's wholeness, carrying not the weight of what was lost, but the strength of what you learned. Do you want me to expand Keynote 4 next with 700 words, so the whole series flows like one long, connected motivational journey? Faith is often imagined as a giant leap, a single heroic moment where you decide once and for all to trust and everything changes instantly. But in reality, faith rarely works that way. Faith is not usually built in dramatic moments. It is forged in the quiet, repetitive choices of daily life. When disappointment has crushed your spirit, when hope feels fragile and belief feels dangerous, faith is not rebuilt overnight. It is rebuilt step by step, choice by choice, breath by breath. The temptation after deep disappointment is to think that if you cannot believe with full strength, you should not believe at all. But faith does not demand perfection. It only demands persistence. You do not have to leap a mountain. You only need to take the next small step. It might be whispering a prayer that feels weak. It might be getting up one more morning when your heart feels heavy. It might be daring to imagine a better tomorrow, even though today is filled with shadows. These small acts are not insignificant. They are the building blocks of restored faith. When you start again, faith may feel like a fragile thread, but even a fragile thread is enough if it ties you back to hope. Each time you choose to trust in the smallest way, you are weaving that thread into something stronger. Over time, it becomes a rope you can cling to, a lifeline that holds you steady. Faith grows not by avoiding pain, but by walking through it and still deciding to believe. The process of rebuilding faith is like healing a broken bone. It cannot be rushed. The bone needs time, protection, and consistent care. If you try to use it too soon, the injury deepens. But if you give it daily attention, if you endure the slow process, it heals stronger than before. In the same way, your faith may have been fractured by disappointment, but with patience and daily trust, it can grow even more resilient. Small steps matter because they train your heart to trust again. They remind you that faith is not about seeing the whole path. It is about taking the next step with courage. When you walk in darkness, you may not see the destination, but you can still move forward one step at a time. Over days, weeks, and months, those steps accumulate. Slowly, almost without realizing it, you look back and see how far you have come. Faith rebuilt in small steps also teaches humility. It reminds you that you are not in control of outcomes, only of choices. Each day you make the choice to believe a little more, to hope a little longer, to trust a little deeper. And though progress feels slow, it is steady. Like drops of water carving stone, daily acts of faith shape your soul in ways that sudden bursts of emotion never could. Rebuilding faith also requires gentleness with yourself. Many give up because they expect to feel strong instantly, but the strength of faith is not measured by how loudly you declare it. It is measured by your willingness to return to it even when you feel weak. It is measured by your decision to show up again, even when yesterday's belief felt crushed. Weak faith is still faith, and when nurtured daily, it becomes unshakable faith. Every step you take to rebuild trust is a declaration that disappointment will not have the final word. Each prayer you whisper, each act of courage you attempt, each moment you choose not to quit is a brick laid in the foundation of your renewed belief. And as the foundation grows, so does your capacity to withstand storms. By taking faith one day at a time, you are not only rebuilding what was broken, you are creating something that disappointment cannot easily destroy again. The journey back to belief is not about speed, but about consistency. Faith that is rebuilt slowly is faith that lasts. Each step, no matter how small, is sacred. And though you may not notice the change immediately, one day you will look back and see that the small steps became a great distance, and the fragile thread of faith became a rope strong enough to hold your future. Would you like me to expand Keynote 5 with 700 words as the final piece, so the whole set becomes a complete motivational series? There are moments when the weight of disappointment convinces you that your story has ended, that there is nothing left to write, that your best chapters are already behind you. But the very fact that you are still breathing is evidence that the author of your life has not set down the pen. Every breath is a reminder of purpose, and every purpose is anchored in hope. To believe again after disappointment, you must shift your perspective from what has ended to what is still unfolding. The end is not in what you lost. The end will only come when you stop believing that there is more to be written. Life is not measured by the number of times you fall, but by the number of times you rise again. And rising again is possible because your story has not concluded. Every great narrative includes struggle, conflict, and challenge. Without them, there is no depth, no growth, no triumph. The valleys you endure are not proof of failure. They are the chapters that prepare you for the mountains ahead. What you call delay is often the space where strength is built, where wisdom is gained, where resilience is formed. It is easy to let disappointment blind you to possibility. When one dream collapses, the heart convinces itself that all dreams will collapse. But the truth is that disappointment is not a prophecy of future failure. It is simply a moment in the journey. It is a single sentence in a long book. The danger is not in facing disappointment. The danger is in making disappointment your identity. Your identity is not in what failed. It is in the purpose that still breathes within you. Purpose is stronger than pain. Pain may slow you, distract you, or even wound you, but it cannot erase why you were created. As long as you have purpose, you have reason to move forward. Purpose whispers in the silence, reminding you that even though one path closed, there is still another waiting to be walked. Hope is not the denial of pain. It is the declaration that pain will not define the rest of your story. When you feel like giving up, remember that history is filled with lives that were transformed not because people never faced setbacks, but because they refused to stop at them. Every great achievement was once an idea that survived disappointment. Every great leader carried scars that could have silenced them, but instead became the testimony of their endurance. The same is true for you. Your scars do not disqualify you. They qualify you to rise stronger than before. The key is to shift your gaze from what has been lost to what can still be gained. Disappointment has a way of narrowing vision, causing you to see only the rubble at your feet. But faith lifts your eyes to see beyond the rubble, to imagine what can be built in its place. Your story is not over because one chapter closed. A book is never defined by a single page. The richness of your journey comes from the unfolding of every stage, even the painful ones. What you carry today is not the end but the preparation for tomorrow. The waiting, the silence, the unanswered prayers, all of these are shaping something inside of you that comfort never could. They are stretching your capacity, deepening your trust, broadening your vision. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize that the very seasons you thought would break you were the seasons that built you. So as long as breath fills your lungs, your assignment remains. Each day is a new opportunity to step forward, to believe again, to hope again, to live again. The presence of life itself is the declaration that the story is still being written. And when you choose to trust in that truth, disappointment loses its power to trap you. You realize that your life is still unfolding, that there are still victories ahead, that your tomorrow holds more promise than your yesterday held pain. Do you want me to now combine all 5 expanded keynotes into a single flowing motivational speech, about 300+ words in the same style, so it reads like one powerful sermon? Then hear this. Your disappointments are not your destiny, your delays are not your defeat, and your pain is not the final chapter of your life. Faith may feel impossible, but it is never gone. It only waits to be chosen again. Release what is broken, learn from what is lost, and take the small steps that rebuild belief day by day. And when you do, you will discover that your story is still unfolding, your purpose is still alive, and your future is still in the hands of a God who cannot fail. So stand, believe again, and rise into the life you were created to live.